Today on the DML News Podcast, Donald J. Trump continues to impress the entire country, the entire world, making changes and driving Democrats crazy, especially when he tosses in the word God, which is what he did yesterday. And we're going to talk about that and so many other different things, from immigration to USAID to, well, just about everything. So get ready, because we're all fired up today, and it's all unfiltered.
Dennis Michael Lynch gives you his word, and he will never let you down. He will always fight for America.
The only one who really puts his money where his mouth is Dennis Michael Lynch.
Hello, I'm Dennis Michael Lynch, and I thank you for joining me today. Across from me is my son, Denny, and on the controls is my son, Ryan. We come to you every single day here, telling you about all the great things that Donald J. Trump is doing to make America great again. It's all inspired by our brand new newsletter, which is growing like wildfire, called 47 Report. You could go to 47report.com, sign up for free, and every single day in your inbox, you're going to wind up getting a library of information. Everything that is going on with the Trump White House, everything that's going on in Congress, you will be in the know. 10 minutes is all it's going to take every single day. And you will go to work, or you will go to play, or you will go wherever you're going, being the smartest person there possibly is, because you are so well informed. So join the unbelievable wave of people who are now signing up for 47report.com, and you will be a happy, happy person. It will be in your inbox tomorrow. And if you don't see it in your inbox tomorrow, well, you can't trust those Googles and Apples and all those other people. So make sure you go and check your spam folder and just drag it over, and you'll be good to go. Also, just a final reminder, only a couple days left of dmlcbd.com/BOGO. Buy one, get one free. dmlcbd.com/BOGO. Buy one, get one free. Join the tens of thousands of people who feel great again because of DML CBD and all the products that we have there. I don't really spend a whole lot of time on this program speaking about religion. I don't feel as if I should be pushing my religious beliefs onto anyone. It's not my place. It's not my job. However, if you have been with me for a while, you know I am a God-fearing man. I give thanks to God every single day of my life, most times twice, but definitely once. Every morning, my morning starts the same way. And I go out onto a balcony that, thank you, God, looks over the beautiful intercoastal waterway here in Florida. And I start off every day the same way by saying, God, thank you for today. Thank you for yesterday. And I pray you'll give me tomorrow and many more tomorrows after that. And that's the way I start my day, because that is the most important thing in my life. I would not have my family. I would not have my country. I would not have my businesses. I would not have you, my followers, my listeners, my members. I would not have any of that if it weren't for God. I don't ever impose on that sort of thing on you. I don't dump it on you. I don't paint you with all religious theory. I don't feel as if that's what this show is about. However, today we're going to start it off in a different sort of way. I'm going to actually thank God right now for giving us Donald J. Trump. He is not a perfect man by any stretch of the imagination. None of us are. And there's only one person to ever walk on water, and he didn't live in Washington, D.C. But he's all around us. And I truthfully believe that in the summer, in July, in Butler, Pennsylvania, I believe God had his hand on Donald J. Trump. And I believe he had his hand on Donald J. Trump and moved his head just a little bit, so this way he would not be killed. And I ultimately think that happened because God realizes that so many of us want America to be the shining city on the hill. God knows that without America, the world does not stand a chance. And what the world should know is that it doesn't stand a chance without God. Donald J. Trump, over the course of his lifetime, never really spent much time speaking about God. And if I were to be perfectly honest with you, which I always am, but if I would go a little bit past the honest and be brutally honest, I remember when he picked Mike Pence for his running mate. And I said, oh, goodness, I know why this is happening. Because Pence was a nice little altar boy, and without the evangelical vote, without Christians believing in you and that you are a good, God-fearing man or woman, you have no chance of winning the presidency. And I don't really believe that Trump was a very spiritual man back then. It's just my opinion. I could be dead wrong. But I think what has happened to Trump ever since he had a chance to run again, ever since every single last break with those crazy lawsuits ended up going his way. And when his head was just turned just ever so slight, so this way he would live another day and become the president of the United States, I think Donald J. Trump has recognized that there is something and someone much bigger than he, and that's the Lord. And since that's happened, I've watched Trump. His ego is always fun to watch. And without his ego, he would not be the president or the leader that he is. He wouldn't have never gotten to the presidency if he didn't have the ego that he has. And I know a lot of times the word ego is used and it sounds like a negative, ugly word. I don't see it that, not in this case with Trump. And I've always said, if we play to Trump's ego, because Trump's ego says he wants to be the very best, if we play to his ego and just once in a while have to cringe at some of the things he used to say, it's okay, because ultimately he's going to fix every problem because his ego wants to see him on the Mount Rushmore. But I think his ego has kind of changed now. He still has it, but it is overshadowed by his humility. And I think more than wanting his face up on Mount Rushmore, Donald J. Trump wants to be accepted and loved all the time, especially by God. I think he understands that God has given him maybe the most important role out of any human being in our lifetime. I cannot think of another figure in the 55 years that I have been alive that has played a more pivotal role than Donald J. Trump. Donald J. Trump yesterday went to the National Prayer Breakfast. It is a 70-year ritual, if you will. It is the one time for certain, although yesterday had a little bit of a burp, and we'll get to that, but it is the one time for certain that the Republicans and the Democrats are going to play nice, because they're going to be coming together and they're going to be praying and praising the Lord. Trump got up yesterday and he talked about the history of the United States and how God is basically the basis of everything in this country. We have a 1-minute, 20-second clip. It's a little long, but it represents what it is that Trump feels and who Trump is at this point in not only his life, but his presidency. And he speaks here about the history of the United States and God. And I think it's important for us to put all the other different things that we like to talk about, put it to the side for a moment, and listen to what this great man has to say.
Thomas Jefferson himself once attended Sunday services held in the old House chamber on the very ground where I stand today. So there could be nothing more beautiful than for us to gather in this majestic place. It is majestic, and reaffirm that America is and will always be one nation under God. At every stage of the American story, our country has drawn hope and courage and inspiration from our trust in the Almighty. Deep in the soul of every patriot is the knowledge that God has a special plan and a glorious mission for America. And that plan is going to happen. It's going to happen. I hope it happens sooner rather than later. It's going to happen. And it's his hand that guides us every single step of the way. And all of you and the things we have to do is to see the defining role that faith and prayer have played in the life of our nation. And you just have to look at this building, and you can look at each other. You can really look at each other. It's defined almost everyone in this room. I think faith has been very strong with the people in this room.
You know, I loved listening to what the president had to say yesterday. In fact, he went on for quite some time, just reflecting once again what happened in Butler, Pennsylvania. And every time he talks about it, you can see that it means something to him. He doesn't need a teleprompter. The words are almost always the same. Because I think there have been many nights when he sat by himself and he's thought about how lucky he is that he was spared and how important he is in what God wants for not only this country, but for the world. You know, Donald J. Trump is often presented by the media and the Democrats as a horrible person. Hates this group, hates that group, hates this one, hates that one. And yet he's never shown any hatred. If anything, he shows an incredible amount of love and compassion and empathy and sympathy, depending on what the situation is. He's the first guy to get on an airplane and go help somebody. Whether that somebody is in California, a state that voted viciously against him, or in North Carolina, a state that by and large is made up of many, many, many hard-hitting conservatives. The stories of Trump and his entire life, of helping somebody, of giving love to somebody, even when that somebody is a stranger, whether he's paid off their mortgage, or he's given them a job, or he's given them another chance after drug addiction, the stories are endless. I've heard some of these stories firsthand. I know some of the people who have been on the blessing side of what Trump can do for others. He is truly a great man. Although flawed, he is a great man. And yesterday he said something that I think we all need to reflect on. Now, maybe you and I are not the person who needs to hear this necessarily, because we have God in our lives. But there are a lot of people in this country, a lot of people in the world, too many people, who have put God either on the back burner or have forgotten about him altogether. And I think when we see President Trump being truly authentic, standing up and talking about how God has to be back in our lives, I think that is the call of a leader like we haven't seen in our lifetime. I'm going to play 30 seconds here of Trump asking Americans to put God back in their life. And then I'll close on what I think is maybe one of the most important things that Trump has ever said in either one of his presidencies.
The element, the everything that's going to be happy. People of religion are going to be happy again. And I really believe you can't be happy without religion, without that belief. I really believe it. I just don't see how you can be. So let's bring religion back. Let's bring God back into our lives. Thank you all very much. Thank you very much. Great honor. Thank you.
A country that doesn't have God is a country that doesn't have a soul. And if you look at the money in your pocket, right, it says, "In God we trust." If you ever have to go into a courtroom, first thing you have to do is put your hand on the Bible and put your hand in the air and say, you know, "I do so swear to tell the truth, so help me God." If we had more God in our lives, more God in our country, many of the problems that we have today would not be here. If there was more God in the world, if more people were focused in on sharing love and receiving love and trying to help people in the same way that Donald J. Trump does, this world would be a much better place. And I am so optimistic that if Trump stays the course as he's shown in the last 3 weeks, and he never forgets that really the leader is God, our nation and our world is set for things that are so incredible, we don't even have a chance of not doing well. We will do great, and we will be great again. Dennis, yesterday, Trump also wound up signing an order, or at least saying that they were going to create a, maybe he didn't sign an order, creating sort of a team to make sure that anti-Christian messaging and discrimination was removed.
Yes, he's having Pam Bondi specifically investigate different federal agencies for growing anti-Christian bias. And some of those agencies are the DOJ, IRS, FBI. So, I mean, just based on that, and then what he was saying, with the deepening connection that he's felt to God, I mean, how can you not when you survive an assassination attempt like that? Even just the difference in his demeanor. with 2016, in both cases here and then, he's always the unstoppable force. But I feel like in 2016, it was that I'm the business tycoon that did The Apprentice. I'm coming into politics. I don't know anything just yet, but like I know I want to get things back. And he still has that I want to get things back mentality, but now he's more of this wise, seasoned grandfather figure in the sense of like where he's coming in. He's definitely a little more soft spoken, but not necessarily because he's retracted any power to his statements, just more so of like, hey, look what I've been through in the last 8 to 10 years when you consider the legal cases, the assassination attempts, the smear campaigns. I mean, you got to be impressed by his family, how they've stuck together, whereas like you get the Kennedy family and they'll tear each other apart, you know? So yeah, I think he's in a very more reflective mood. And I think he understands too that these next 4 years are very critical to get the country back on track. Because just look how much Biden and Kamala did in a 4-year time span alone in terms of damaging the country.
You know, you're talking about how it is that he presents himself and all the things that he's thankful for. You cannot be a smart human being like he is and realize that you're not going to get through all those things that he got through alone. You're going to need something far more powerful and far more spiritual than yourself. And that's why, I mean, I look at him, what you're talking about is the word is humility. The humility of Donald J. Trump is what I think is the most recognizable thing about him. You could look at him and say, boy, he didn't age a bit. You could look at him and say he looks happy and healthy, and all those things are true. But every time I hear him speak, I feel as if there is a bit of a different man in Donald J. Trump, and I absolutely love it.
You know, one of the attendees at the prayer service yesterday, I might get her name wrong. I think her name was Paula. She was a 82-year-old woman who was arrested under the Biden administration for praying outside an abortion clinic. And I think, you know, for Trump's perspective there, it's how is it that, you know, with the principles that this nation was founded on, that we now have administrations like the Biden administration where they just kind of say, hey, it's okay that a grandmother with no prior criminal history is just doing something related to her faith. But, you know, if we wanted to criticize any other faiths, we would be then discriminatory. So I think it's important that Trump, as he said at the prayer breakfast, is getting in front of the growing anti-bias or the anti-Christian bias that's festering, especially from Democrats. I mean, I know we'll have a video coming up of someone trying to protest the prayer breakfast yesterday. And the radicalism in them is just kind of perplexing at this point.
Well, you know, if you go back to Obama, you know, pretended as if he was a Christian.
Yeah.
And I say pretended, maybe he really is, I don't know. But at the end of the day, he didn't act like one. No. And he would sit there and he would defend Islamic, you know, scripture and Allah and Muhammad and everything else. This country was based on the Lord Jesus and God the Father. That's it. Now, you could come to this country and you can celebrate and pray as you like. But at the end of the day, our core principles are Judeo-Christian. And for the first time, with Trump back in here, being the way that he is now, I feel as if we're setting that stage once again that says, this is what our country is. This is who we are. This is who we believe in and pray to. You're welcome to come here. We're not saying you have to pray to the same people, but you are not going to take away what it is, the basis and the bedrock of this country. And, you know, it's funny. The other thing too, you just talked about, you know, the Democrats. We're going to play a minute video here of a Democrat, Huffman, protesting. I mean, who does that sort of thing? Protesting. And this is supposed to be the one time a year when Democrats and Republicans put the nonsense away. But you know what? Democrats are ill. And so when people are sick in the head, they do sickly things. And this person you'll see gets up there and is going to make this whole protest about, you know, don't mix politics and religion and whatever. This is not mixing politics and religion. This is setting the tone for a country that in many different ways has lost its voice, has lost its way. And through President Trump and his beliefs, his spiritual beliefs, we're going to get this country back on track. Because I truly believe, and I know a lot of my listeners will all agree with me, I live my life based on the idea and the belief that I have a higher power to answer to. And there are always opportunities for for evil to take over my decision making. And any time, as sweet as that pie may look, as smelly and beautiful as I want to touch it and see it and whatever it is, whether it's a business deal, whatever it may be, and I know it's not the right thing, ultimately what sets me on my course is my belief that my Lord and my God wants me to act a certain way. And that is what keeps me from being a bad person. And if we had more people following that same sort of trajectory, America would be completely unstoppable. And I think that's what Trump is doing, despite what these Democrats are trying to do to him. And what I love what he's doing this time with the Democrats, he's almost laughing them off. In his first go-round in 2016, he was forever battling with them, going head-to-head with them and trying to outpunch them. Now he has recognized to just stop, look at them, laugh, and let the world see how crazy these people are. And that's that. Here's a prime example. Here is this Democrat lawmaker making a complete buffoon of himself.
Hi, folks. I'm just getting ready to cross the street for the National Prayer Breakfast. I am not going to this event because I support it. I'm actually going to protest it. And I'm going to be wearing a couple of buttons to explain that. This one, Build This Wall, is about the wall of separation between church and state that our founders intended for our secular republic. And then this one says Entering Gilead, of course, a reference to a creepy dystopic theocracy, which is the slippery slope we're heading down with events like this. Let's walk and I'll tell you more about it. So, look, we should not be having a Christian prayer service in the sanctum of the United States Capitol, in Statuary Hall. This is an actual violation of church-state separation like we have never seen. Second year in a row, Speaker Johnson has done this, and now they're doing it in open collaboration with a group called the Fellowship Foundation, which is this radical extremist group that does things like goes to Africa and supports legislation to kill gay people and openly supports an anti-woman, anti-LGBT extreme agenda here in the United States. Stuff like this complete breakdown of church-state separation is a big part of the dystopic authoritarian agenda at the heart of Donald Trump and his MAGA movement. And today I'm going to try to do my part to just say enough.
I just want to say, I mean, he comes from the same party that apparently has an issue with the prayer breakfast being at the Capitol building. But if two gay interns hook up and film themselves, kind of like what happened last year under the Biden administration.
That's right.
We'll just blow it under the rug, no
That's right.
issues, But apparently you can't have prayer over there. It's this is why the Democrats are just saying that they're threatening to LGBT, and then that lie about that with the Africa. It's a shame that they even have a platform to speak that way.
The truth of the matter is that the Democrat Party is dead. They don't have any leadership. They don't have a voice. They don't have a message, and they continue to just champion for the so tiny demographic that is just mentally ill in the head. And that's not me slamming on the LGBTQ community. If they need help or whatever, let's give them the help. But they do not dictate the direction of this country. And what you have that guy right there doing, everybody is trying to figure out where their relevance is in the Democrat Party. That whole video that he just made is just his lame attempt of trying to find relevance and to see whether or not he'll be the person that they'll say, hey, that's the leader we're looking for. And what the problem is that none of these people realize what the American people want. That's why when you see all these Democrats standing up and talking about USAID and how it was all shut down and Trump's doing bad and he's doing... What are they talking about? This is what the American people wanted. Trump said everything that Trump said he was going to do, he has done so far in the first 3 weeks. He has not said anything that is surprising other than we're going to buy Gaza. But you take that aside, everything that he's done is in line with what he said. And I want to remind people of what has been said since I got into politics. I've been into politics now for almost 20 years. And if there has been two recurring things I've heard, one, close the border, but number two, from everybody, I want a small government. And Trump is now slashing the government massively, and the Democrats are going crazy over it. They're going crazy for us stopping spending on things that are just out of control. And we're going to play a video in a couple of minutes from Senator Kennedy, who puts it perfectly. But I mean, ultimately, the American people, Dennis, they're hardworking people. They don't mind paying taxes, but they want their taxes to be lower. And when they do pay the taxes, they want the taxes going to things that are going to enrich the United States of America, its citizens, and their own local neighborhoods and states. With that being said, I know Caroline Leavitt, the press secretary, came out yesterday and made another announcement about taxes.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, right now, Trump's handling a lot of different things, but a big thing that he's doing with GOP lawmakers has been trying to, get the budget balance. And obviously that's a very in tandem process, because you got Doge cutting here, you got Trump firing these ones to save on, employee retention. So they're trying their best with how are we going to make the agenda go full force. So Caroline Leavitt spoke yesterday, and it's about 40 seconds, just saying the tax cuts that Trump is going to aim for Americans are going to be the biggest in history. And she kind of lists off some of the components to that.
Play it.
So these are the tax priorities of the Trump administration that the president has laid out for members in that meeting today. No tax on tips, which is obviously a very public campaign promise that the president made. No tax on seniors' Social Security. No tax on overtime pay. Renewing President Trump's 2017 middle-class tax cuts. Again, these are the president's priorities. Adjusting the SALT cap, eliminate all the special tax breaks for billionaire sports team owners, close the carried interest tax deduction loophole, tax cuts for Made in America products. This will be the largest tax cut in history for middle-class working Americans. The president is committed to working with Congress to get this done.
So it looks like Trump's hitting the campaign promises and then some.
One after the next after the next. Now let's talk about these taxes for a second. There should be absolutely no issue whatsoever with Trump making significant tax cuts for every single American in every single tax bracket. And here's why. Look at what we've seen in the last week. We're slashing government spending, both internally in Washington, D.C., and there's going to be more of that to come. This is why Elon Musk and Doge is so important. They're going through D.C. like a wrecking ball. And then on top of that, all the money that we're going to save internationally on not spending on stupid stuff anymore, primarily through USAID and other areas that are also going to pop up. So what should be able to happen just from that alone is, if you take it on its face, there's going to be more money for America. Then you take that we're deporting, and I mean deporting illegal aliens. It starts off with the worst criminals, and then it's got to go into the deporting the people who are here working illegally and not paying into our system. If you take those two things and you combine them together, you are going to save the American taxpayer a gargantuan amount of money. And as far as I'm concerned, the only thing more beautiful than Trump giving tax cuts is, I believe, on a proportionate rate, everybody should get a massive check in the mail with an apology letter that says, we are sorry that your money was spent in the areas that it was spent. We stole your money from you, and here is, in part, a refund. Yeah. That would mean a lot. It's an apology that we all deserve.
I would love that. And that's why all our 47 Report subscribers know. I mean, there's a lot of different sectors within these different departments. Obviously, USAID being likely the biggest culprit, with all these taxpayer funds that are just completely frivolous. And anyone who's been watching the show and reading the 47 Report knows some of these endeavors, such as the $20 million for Sesame Street, $8 million to Sri Lanka to teach journalists how to do non-binary language.
Don't go down the whole list. I'm not going down the list, because we have a great video for that.
Yes, of course. So, but what I'm saying is that, especially because today, I believe, is the deadline of finally USAID is absolved, as in it's now at the State Department. All those 10,000 employees are mostly fired. I think he's retained about 290. 300.
Yep. So out of 10,000.
Out of 10,000, yeah. So with all that money we're saving, I mean, it should be now that and I just want to point out too, really quick, because we had this in the 47 Report. I have noticed that a lot of these countries that were receiving this aid, even Africa, for example, and we played a video recently from the president of Kenya, not a lot of them are up in arms about this. And the reason is because most of that money is not actually getting to them. It is going to the NGOs that are attached, or to the politicians that have interests there. So, Chuck Schumer and his clan are all freaking out. But when it comes to these actual countries, they're saying, we're not going to really actually feel a difference.
Well, there's that. And look, you always have to understand messaging. There's that you just said, and I don't deny that at all. But the second reason why you're not hearing complaints is because the leaders of those countries have been stealing that money from their citizens. And therefore, they do not want to bring any kind of spotlight on themselves, because the last thing they want is Elon Musk and Doge going deeper into seeing what it is that they did with the money they received. Trust me when I tell you that one. Sometimes it's just best to be quiet, not say anything, and go under the radar screen. Okay, we're not going to get the free money anymore. Just be quiet. Don't complain about it. We got our money. We're good to go. And that's that. And that's really what, I think a lot of these quiet leaders are hoping for, that this all brushes over and they never got their hand caught in the cookie jar. Trust me when I tell you that's a big thing. I got an email today. This is kind of within our scope here, but I want to be sure that we're just not blaming the Democrats for USAID. Okay, because at the end of the day, we can say to Elon Musk and Donald J. Trump, 1 and 2, they were the two people that said, we're going to end this crap. It's going to stop. We're ending it. No doubt about it. It's over. If you take Elon Musk and Donald J. Trump out of the equation, there's not a single Republican, maybe with the exception of Rand Paul, who has ever really, truly called for this sort of thing to be done like it's done. And I got to bring, and I haven't thought of that, to be honest, because we're so busy with so many different things and there's so many things going on. And it's just sort of like we're at a party and it's total bliss. And we have to remember what it is that these Republicans have been doing to us before Donald J. Trump stepped back into office. And this comes from a woman named Brandy Plunkett, who's been with us for a while as a Team DML member. And I'll just read a part of what she said here, because I read the email. I said, I got to read this on the show today. Good morning, DML. The more Doge, Elon Musk, digs into government waste, the more pissed off I am at the Republicans as much as I am the Democrats. People believe because the Republicans aren't out screaming like the insane Democrats that the Republicans are the good guys. No, they are not. This waste was done under their watch. It was not done overnight. No one was willing until now to fix this. If Trump wasn't president, we would not be learning about any of it. Of course, the Republicans aren't going against this, but that doesn't mean they aren't just as guilty for it getting this far and out of hand. And she is 150% correct. Thank you, Brandy, for that email. People like freaking Lindsey Graham. My God, do I want this man gone. He's now getting up, trying to make relevance of himself, talking about how it is that he's going to pen his own budget of $300 billion and he's going to present it if Mike Johnson can't get something going with the House of Representatives. He's also making press conferences about how illegal aliens aren't going to be taking over South Carolina. This man has been looking to spend money in other countries since the day he got into Congress. He was, if you remember correctly, Lindsey Grahamnesty. That's what we called him instead of Lindsey Graham. He was part of the Gang of Eight for the Obama Comprehensive Immigration Reform Act, which was going to basically give amnesty to every illegal alien in this country. So this woman, Brandy, is very smart. We must remember that this is Donald J. Trump and Elon Musk forging ahead, and all the Republicans are basically falling in line. But do not trust these people. In order to truly get the American system back on track, we need to go back to what our founding fathers wanted. And you and I talked about this not more than 2 days ago. The founding fathers set up this country so this way you would run for an office, you would win an office, and then after you served your 1 or 2 terms, you would go back to your original plan of being a teacher, being a farmer, being a cop, being a whatever. It was not designed, this system was not designed for people to say, I'm going to be a career politician for my entire life, because that's how corruption is implanted. That's how USAID was allowed to do what it was doing. And we need to change that. We cannot be blinded by just the fact that we're in this euphoric stage of finding out all the nonsense that was going on and that it's getting cut off. Because once Trump is gone, and he's only here for 4 years, if we don't change the entire system, We're starting right now with agencies, and then next has to be with the people who have been there forever. They got to be out on their ass, and that's that.
You know, Lindsey Graham really is a stain on the Republican Party. I would hope South Carolina constituents would like hold him more accountable to try and get Trump's agenda first rather than what's best for Lindsey Graham.
You would think so. Now, we have another video worth playing here. So there's her name is Miss Power. I think it's Samantha Power, right?
Yes, big Obama girl.
And she was a big Obama girl, and she was the USAID director under Biden. And she is the one who had her hand ultimately on the checkbook for billions and billions of your money. And now, because she's being called out, she's trying to flip the script and blame Trump, that this is some kind of bad, huge, dictatorish kind of scheme from Trump. I think we got that video, Ryan. Play the video of this creep.
Well, you can imagine when you suddenly in your inbox find a termination notice or a leave of absence notice that you didn't expect to get on a flawed predicate that you're doing radical leftist insubordination. It's pretty jarring. And because there's so many lies and falsehoods circulating, and so many claims that people are sort of not with the program, I think people are just completely dislocated. There's no stable ground on which to walk. And then, of course, most of them have been laid off, so they're worried about how they're going to pay the bills and how they're going to make rent. But maybe the part that is the most striking and, for me, inspiring, if not surprising, having worked there for 4 years, is that, the people who work at USAID did not come to work at USAID for the money. The civil servants, the foreign servants, the contractors, they came to USAID because they wanted to make a difference in the world, because they saw America's interests as tied up with the interests of people, vulnerable people around the world. And so even as they're struggling to figure out how to make rent, all of a sudden, they're most struggling with the fear that so many millions of people who relied on us as a country, on USAID as an agency, but on them as individuals, that those individuals out in the world have no place to turn. And indeed, they're showing up and finding health clinics shuttered and soup kitchens closed and advisors who were helping governments renegotiate debt with China. Those advisors, now taken off the books. So just the wreckage in the world is what the USAID staff that I'm in touch with are carrying with them. That's what's keeping them up at night, as much as the question of, what am I going to do tomorrow? And, how do I take care of my family?
You know what I want to see? I want to see a reporter. I'd love it from Breitbart, somebody who's not going to take any BS, or one of these independent guys. I want to see a reporter get this woman in a corner to where she can't escape, oh, sorry, I got a meeting, with a microphone, and say to her, you had your hand on the checkbook. Why in heaven's name did you allocate so many hundreds of millions of billions of dollars to functions and organizations that sponsor terror, that sponsor chopping up children's body parts? How dare you? Why did you? Explain it to the American people right now. You're not allowed to leave until you explain it. I'd love to see that happen.
And then the second question has to be, and how much money did you make on that role for the last 4 years? Because there have been reports that her wealth seems to have kind of skyrocketed since she got that role as
all of their wealth has,
USAID
right?
director.
All of their wealth has. I want to play. We have a video right now from Senator Kennedy. Now, I want to stick with Brandy Plunkett's email to me. Senator Kennedy is going to get up, and he's been in the Senate for a while. He's going to get up there right now, and he's going to tell you about all the different crazy things that this money went to. Now, you've probably heard most of this already, and Denny wanted to do it, but I stole his thunder because we cut this clip because I knew I wanted to hold him accountable. I want somebody to get him in the corner and say, how do you not know, Senator, that these are the things that our money is going to? This isn't $20 and $200. This is hundreds of millions of dollars. Play Kennedy right now trying to, as far as I'm concerned, bail the water out of his boat.
Some of our foreign aid is going to Yemen, Afghanistan, Syria. He found that the USAID has 10,000 people, 10,000 people, employees. And every year they give away $40 billion. He found that the USAID gave money to support electric vehicles in Vietnam. Our money, taxpayer money. He found that USAID gave money to a transgender clinic in India. I didn't know that. I bet the American people didn't know that. He found that the USAID gave $1.5 million to a Serbian LGBTQ group called Grupa Izadaji. I probably mispronounced that. My apologies. Anyway, they got $1.5 million to, quote, advance diversity, equity, and inclusion in Serbia's workplaces and business community. He reviewed a study and then went and checked it. The study was done by the Middle East Forum. They found that USAID spent $164 million to support radical organizations around the world. We're not talking Cub Scout troops here. We're talking about radical organizations around the world. They gave $122 million of that to groups aligned with foreign terrorist organizations. Our taxpayer money. According to this report in Mr. Musk, the USAID has given millions of dollars to, quote, organizations in Gaza controlled by Hamas. Why aren't my colleagues talking about that? Recipients of the money, they found, have, quote, called for their lands to be cleansed from the impurity of Jews. That's what we're giving foreign aid to. I kind of find what he's found out interesting. He found that we gave $2 million, USAID did, for sex changes in Guatemala. He found that we gave $20 million to produce a new Sesame Street show in Iraq. He found that we gave $4.5 million of taxpayer money to combat disinformation in Kazakhstan. He found that we gave $10 million, USAID did, of meals to an al-Qaeda-linked terrorist group called the Nusra Front. Mr. Musk found that we gave $7.9 million of taxpayer money to a project that would teach Sri Lankan journalists to avoid binary gendered language. The USAID took $8 million and gave it to a bunch of journalists in Sri Lanka to teach them how to avoid binary gendered language. I don't know what the hell binary gendered language is. I think I do. You think most taxpayers would support that? Why are we talking about that? The USAID gave $1.5 million to promote LGBT advocacy in Jamaica. They gave $1.5 million to rebuild the Cuban media ecosystem. They gave $1.5 million for, quote, art for inclusion of people with disabilities in Belarus. Another $3.9 million for LGBT causes in Macedonia. $8.3 million for equity and inclusion education in Nepal. I could go all night. And many of my colleagues are upset. They're really mad at Mr. Musk. Hell, I think we ought to give him a medal.
He pretends maybe look, I like Kennedy because he's funny and he says some things, but at the end of the day, he's just like all the rest of these guys. Where were you? This happened on your watch. Be a little responsible and say this happened on our watch. We are just as guilty as anybody else. We apologize. But what they want to do is just stomp on the Democrats. And as Brandy said, it's very easy to do that. And it's very deserving to do that. They all deserve it. But at the end of the day, the Republicans make up half of that Congress. And don't tell me for 1 second that none of those Republicans knew what was going on with USAID.
I mean, you would have to assume they would know. I mean, maybe the more complicated thing is that it seems like the way Elon Musk has assembled this DOGE team is that it's a money trail, so to say. So it's almost like they're kind of going from a point A, point B to point C. And I'm wondering, are there some cases where they're told only from point A to B and not the rest of the story? Or did they really know and they just know that they couldn't speak up about it because they didn't have Trump in office? But that's giving them the benefit of the doubt, maybe too gracefully, because at the same time, if they did have a semblance of what was going on, they should have been speaking about it from the heavens, starting just out. But I think, like the Doge team here, what they're doing is kind of remarkable in the sense that, like, for example, from the 47 report, the Doge revealed the U.S. government paid $34 million to far left news outlet Politico in totality of how much was given over.
And now here's the crazy thing. They were paying it for mainly subscriptions.
Right.
So what is that? That is the most legal, illegal thing you can imagine. That's finding the loophole. See, so what it basically comes down to is this. Let me explain to you how this happens. The way that you succeed in Washington, D.C. is that you get favorable press. And so how do you ensure that you get favorable press? Well, you buy the people in the press. If you don't buy them, you give them a job like Obama did. Obama's entire administration was made up mostly of people who served in the mainstream media at some capacity. And so what happens? It's like, imagine this. Dennis goes and works for the Trump campaign right now, and he's in the press corps. He's going to call me up and he's going to say, hey, Dad, I need us to do a really good article or really good podcast about Trump's tax cuts. All right, you got it, Dan. That's how it works, right? So how do you make sure that one of the most powerful DC-based news rags, which is Politico, is going to write favorably about you? You make sure that you feed them money. Well, how are you going to give a press company, how are you going to give a media company money like that, especially one that does the news? Oh, well, you justify it by saying everybody in our office needs to have a subscription to Politico, so this way we could stay in the know. So you buy subscriptions, and it is a legal, illegal way, as far as I'm concerned, to get your positive press in the way that you want it.
It makes sense. And, just another thing too, with the Doge team specifically, because I almost think a good analogy is just thinking of the spider web, because when you start following that money trail, it is crazy how far it can expand and reach. So, Musk, this team that he's assembled, the big controversy around it is that they are very young. I mean, like one of these specialists is 19 years old, and CNN's having meltdowns because he had an online name called Big Balls. So there's like a little bit of like, okay, what's the maturity level? But when you start looking into some of these guys, like some of the work that they've done at such a young age, it's almost like a little bit of like a prodigal genius, sort of say. So
yes, but here's the thing, and this is why I didn't want to cover most of this today on that whole side of it about them slamming Doge. When you cannot justify that Politico got $34 million and that we were given the BBC tens of millions of dollars and all these other different places, it's going to come out that they're all compromised as well. CNN, New York Times, or whatever. What you do is you try to destroy the messenger. You try to destroy the credibility of who it is that's finding these things out. It's a distraction. It's a wave of the hand. Hey, don't look at the fact that you were giving $34 million to Politico and all the favorable stuff that was written. Don't talk about the fact that you were giving LGBTQ classes to people in Honduras. Forget about that. Let's talk about the scumbags who are finding this stuff out. That's where the problem is. They're trying to redirect the narrative. And the way that they do that is like, well, what are we going to do? We can't say anything bad about Elon Musk because the Lord knows he's worth hundreds of billions of dollars. And look what he's doing. He's finding out all the scum stuff that we've done. Oh, let's start making fun of, let's start discrediting the people who are doing it. And listen, at the end of the day, if you've got somebody who needs to go into a computer system and find the deep, dark secrets that are hidden within, you know who I want? I want a 19-year-old who spends his time online, whose name is Big Balls, and he's going to come in and he's going to be able to do whatever decoding he needs to do and says, here you go, President Trump. This is what I just found. I'm not going to call in some 65-year-old analyst from, some think tank who doesn't know even how to check his email, let alone get in deep into the nuances of code. And that's what they're doing. They're looking deep. They're doing internal forensics on everything from accounting to following the messaging. You need youngsters doing this because they specialize in that kind of thing.
And it's just fun because there are reports that there's been the clashes of them going in and some of these older members of these departments and just don't know what to do or show them like how to even begin because look, I'm going to be 30, and I even sometimes find technology moves so fast to keep up. So Elon Musk knows what he's doing. He's assembling literally those guys who can read code as if it's reading a birthday card. So I think if you're going to get the right people in there, have at it. It's just, classic Democrats screaming from the hill that, this is all just too jarring for them.
And they're just getting started. So
Accountability is too jarring for them.
It is announced that DOGE will start to aim their sights now on the Department of Education, which is great because that place needs to be audited in a big way.
Yeah.
We told you the other day about how they're going in and the Treasury. The Democrats are going crazy trying to get judges to stop the whole thing and whatever it may be. We have a clip here from the Secretary of the Treasury, Scott Bessent, and he is going to give a little bit of an explanation of what's going on here with the DOGE and the Treasury.
I'm here with U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent in Washington. Mr. Secretary, thank you for joining me.
Hello, good to see you.
Mr. Secretary, we are inside the cash room at the Treasury Department. It is almost impossible to overstate how important the work that is done in this building is to the U.S. financial system. Yet right now, there is widespread concern about the DOGE team's access to sensitive payment systems. Are you worried at all that that access and that tinkering of the payment systems could affect the Treasuries market or cause any disruption?
Good. Well, Saleha, thank you for asking me about that because there's a lot of misinformation out there. First of all, when you say the DOGE team, these are Treasury employees. It is 2 Treasury employees, one of whom I personally interviewed in his final round. There is no tinkering with the system. They are on read-only. They are looking. They can make no changes. It is an operational program to suggest improvement. So we make 1.3 billion payments a year. And this is 2 employees who are working with a group of longstanding employees.
The letter that the Treasury Department sent earlier this week talked about how the team currently does not have access to change the system. Have they at any point this year had the ability to make changes?
Absolutely not. This is no different than you would have at a private company. And by the way, the ability to change the system sits over at the Federal Reserve. So it doesn't even lie in this building. So they could make suggestions on how to change the system, but we don't even run the system.
And if they ask for, if they request the ability to change the system, would you grant that?
No, again, they have no ability to change the system. I have no ability to grant that change. That they can make suggestions, then it would go to the Federal Reserve, and just like any large ERP system, there would be tests, there would be this, there would be that, and then the Fed will determine whether these changes are robust or not.
As the Secretary of Treasury, you also oversee the IRS. Do you know what kind of access the team has to IRS data or individual taxpayer data?
Well, I'm glad you asked that too, because look, the IRS, the privacy issue is one of the biggest issues. And over the past 4 years, we've seen a lot of leaks out of there. The IRS systems are quite poor. When I started in college in 1980, I learned the program in COBOL. I think there are 12 different systems at the IRS that still run on COBOL. But as of now, there is no engagement at the IRS.
And if they request that access, would you sign off on that request?
They haven't, so we'll take that when it comes to it.
There you go. I mean, that clip goes on for a while, but ultimately it's going to tell you that Elon Musk is going through everything that needs to be gone through. He's doing it legally. He's doing it the right way. He's doing it per the requests of the president. These judges and the courts are going to try like the Dickens to stop them as much as possible. All it will be is a speed bump. Ultimately, we are going to wind up finding out everything that needs to be learned. And I know that that's what Trump is going to do. I have faith in that, Dennis. He's also been very busy. Yesterday, he signed an executive order placing sanctions on the International Criminal Court, saying that he would impose tangible and significant consequences on people who work on investigations that threaten the national security of the United States and its allies, including Israel. He is not kidding anymore about protecting Israel and protecting the sovereignty of this country.
Good. I mean, well, he's walking the walk. I mean, even he celebrated the NCAA's new policy barring transgender athletes from women's sports, and obviously he just had that executive order where he was making sure, I think it was called "No Men in Women's Sports," where he wants to preserve the fact that female athletes can play with other female athletes and not worried about getting body checked by a male that outweighs them by 100 pounds.
And then having to go into the locker room and look at him undress in front of the girls that they're sitting there and having to do that. So yeah, now it's great because the NCAA seems like it's following right in line, and so too are all other schools around the country. And those who don't are going to have the wrath of Pam Bondi. Another thing that happened yesterday, again, you would be getting all this if you signed up for free at the 47report.com. That's 47report.com, numeralized 47report.com. The Panama Canal, all right, is now fee-free.
For all U.S.
For
government
all
vessels.
U.S. government vessels. Secretary Marco Rubio is down there. It all aligns with what Trump said. Either we're going to take it back over or you're going to take the fees away. We built this thing for you. Now you're not going to charge me to use it. So that worked in our favor.
And then another Latin American country down there, Argentina, they're following her lead again. They are banning gender-affirming care for people under the age of 18. So I'm sure we're going to see them also. And this is just after the pullouts from the World Health Organization. They followed suit after Trump pulled us out.
I got two of them here, two more things from 47report.com. The Justice Department sued Illinois, the city of Chicago, and Cook County, which is also in Illinois, for their sanctuary city policies, limiting police from being able to work with law enforcement, meaning ICE. And Pam Bondi is now going after each one of these and going to defund each one of these sanctuary cities. And that's the way it should be. Also, Trump took action against Ellen Weintraub. This one I love because I've been calling for this one, Dennis. She was the chair, or she is the chair, of the Federal Election Commission. She should be the first person on the chopping block. He informed her that her immediate removal from office was imminent. She comes back, radical Dem, she comes back and publicly contests it and says that he does not, as the President of the United States, have legal standing to remove her from her position. So we'll see how that all pans out for good old Ellen.
Two more international components here. Zelensky is demanding nuclear weapons or NATO membership, which is just absurd. And then Trump is meeting with the Japanese prime minister today, too, at the White House.
Now, it's funny because go back to the Zelensky thing for a second. Think about what he's demanding. You have to either give me nuclear weapons or give me the protections of NATO. If Trump gives either one of those things, it is an absolute World War III. Trump is going to tell Zelensky no. And as far as I'm concerned, we should be telling Zelensky, adios. You're on your own. If Poland and these other countries want to defend you because they're your neighbors, have at it. We did our part. That's it. We're out. Tap out. I don't want to be part of it anymore. Do you agree?
I agree with that in almost all foreign situations. And, I have a question here for you.
Yeah.
This was also from the 47 report. I'm curious just of your very minor take here. Going back to Doge, they are proposing, based on their analysis, the elimination of the penny. Because they said the production of making pennies actually costs its face value. I mean, it seems minuscule, but I wonder how do you feel about?
Well, the problem with that, see, I don't think the big problem. I'm surprised Musk didn't think this out longer because the problem of it isn't so much the printing of the penny; it's that the entire system now would need to change because things are rounded to a penny, right? We don't round them up to 5 cents and 10 cents. I mean, you could literally walk into a store and say, "Yes, Mr. Lynch, that's $24.16." Or 21 cents. All right, well, what are we going to do now? Are we going to automatically round up and round down?
So I'm wondering, is he talking about the elimination of just the production of it? Or are we just going to account for that?
No
like
more,
I could go find a penny.
So in other words, pennies are going to become a commodity after a while because they're not going to be in print anymore.
Right.
But I mean,
I'm wondering though, maybe it's just more of a crazy suggestion of theirs, but I guess their analysis was that it would not make sense to have it.
I have no idea, but a couple more things that are very, very interesting. Senator John Fetterman says that he's going to vote against the confirmations of Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and Tulsi Gabbard. I still don't think that is something we're going to have to worry all too much about because I think both of them are going to wind up getting in. Here's another thing from the crazy left. A bisexual Michigan State Representative, Lori Pushki, announced that she sterilized herself. She literally went in
response to Trump, right?
And she sterilized herself because it's a protest against Trump, and she wanted to avoid pregnancy for fear of losing her access to abortion. This is the Democrat Party. And then my favorite one of the day is from Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton, yeah, she's still around. She writes this on X. U.S. airlines had gone 16 years without fatal crashes. Then MAGA fired the FAA chief, gutted the Aviation Security Advisory Committee, and threatened air traffic controllers with layoffs. So this is what she's saying. Now, Sean Duffy, who is the Secretary of Transportation, basically said, I know you're lashing out, Hillary Clinton, because DOJ is uncovering your family's obscene grifting and via the USAID, but I won't let you lie and distort the facts. The FAA administrator announced his resignation over a month before Trump took office. And that's what I love, is that you have to keep these slime accountable.
Of course, they all have their crazy little interests. I mean, we've been talking about this too, and this is probably what pisses me off the most, are some of these radical judges blockading Trump's orders. So, like, two examples here. One leftist federal judge out of Boston put a halt to the federal employee buyout plan that Trump wanted to. I think he wanted 5 to 10% of the U.S. federal workforce to, take the buyout and quit.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're at about 3%.
60,000.
It's 60,000. But here you have a judge trying to put a blockade on the whole thing, and then you got another leftist judge to go back to the Treasury, restricting access to those DOJ specialists. And it's just like, what, Trump is trying to seek out a fixture here on things that are going on. And when you got judges who believe they got more power than the president, on a local, whether or federal district, it's ridiculous. We know what they're trying to do.
It's just a speed bump, Dennis. And then just to round this off, a couple of little things here we need everybody to know, because you're going to want to know it. Vice President J.D. Vance, his half-brother, Corey Bauman, has collected petitions. He is going to run for the mayor of Cincinnati, inspired by his obviously half-brother's success as VP. And also Trump has asked Vance to lead the search, if you will, for somebody who will buy TikTok.
Yes. Yeah. I saw that. We do have some updates too. Russell Vought, he was the guy that Democrats were freaking out about with the Project 2025, believing he was the author. He did get confirmed last night, finally.
The Office of Management and Budget
Director, But Kash Patel, his committee vote got pushed off a whole week.
And that is just a tactic by the Democrats. Ultimately, Kash Patel is in. But that is just a tactic by the Democrats to try to stall anything that Trump is trying to get accomplished in his first 100 days. So keep that in mind, and that's why that is all there. Another thing, it's not a usual thing for us to say, but there is a Republican and a Democrat working together. They have introduced a No Deep Seek on Government Devices Act, because this new AI DeepSeek from China, they don't want it to be on your local congressman's cell phone, because we're going to wind up getting hacked.
We also, I know we already talked about it, but I know Trump and Mike Johnson are having trouble getting some of the more staunch Rhino Republican lawmakers to agree to the planned budget here.
And I can tell you that going into next week, that will be what you and I are going to be talking about a lot, because the whole budget thing is going to be the first test to see whether or not the Republicans can really coalesce the Make America Great Again agenda as Donald J. Trump has printed it out. With that being said, let me just tell you, I started a new program at the beginning of January. For those of you who are just listening to us for the first time today, finding us again on X and Facebook and Rumble, it's called Life After 50. And what I do is I sit here one-on-one, it's face-to-face interviews. I take a person, nobody you've ever heard of before, but they have very, very interesting life stories. And we've talked about everything from surviving cancer to holistic medicine to surviving divorce to being broke and then all of a sudden 4 years being a millionaire, investigating war crimes. I mean, these have been some of the more interesting conversations I've ever had. Tomorrow, you will be able to get the next interview with a gentleman named Bill. He is 80 years old. He was a nuclear submarine pilot. All right. And I mean, this is just one of those times you're like, wow. So make sure you check that out. And where you can check that out is we'll have it on Facebook. We'll have it here on Rumble. We'll have it on X. We'll have it on the DML News app. And of course, to my members, we will have it on teamdml.com. You do not want to miss it. It is a fantastic interview. In fact, This guy used to be partners with somebody who ran for president in the United States. I'm not going to tell you who it is. You got to get it tomorrow, but it is a phenomenal, phenomenal discussion. So, winding up, 47report.com. Go in there, sign up. Starting tomorrow, you'll get your newsletter. We do it 7 days a week. You don't want to miss it. It's completely free. And then on top of that, don't forget, buy one, get one free. You may have seen me wiping this on my arm here. I hit my arm the other day. It's totally helping me out. DMLCBD.com/BOGO. Buy one, get one free. It ends February 10. Get in there now and do it. On behalf of Ryan and on Denny, we wish you and your family the best today, the most best weekend and safe weekend. May God bless you, your family, these United States, President Trump, and Vice President Vance.
And today's Team DML blessing goes out to Cheryl Marino.
All right, Cheryl, run with it. We'll talk to you soon.
Or Spotify, and download the DML News app from the Google Play Store or the Apple App Store for breaking news, merchandise, films, exclusive content, and Team DML. Get the Dennis Michael Lynch podcast every day by subscribing on Apple Podcasts or Spotify.